Well, welcome back to the 3 for 3 podcast, where three guys have three opinions about one topic. You're here for our elusive second episode, which now makes this an official series over just being one episode. My name is Mark Bates. I am a math professor full-time at Oxnard College in Oxnard, California, as well as Pepperdine University in lovely Malibu, California. Currently kind of ravaged by the wildfire scene at the time we're recording this. On the side, I also am the president of Infinite Pi Games for fun games such as Sovereign Chess and World Cup, if you're a fan of chess or soccer. But that's enough about me. I'm going to pass this along to one of my co-hosts here, Don Patterson. Go ahead, Don.
Hey, I'm Don Patterson, and I am a computer scientist and entrepreneur, and I don't have anything to shill this week. I am very excited about the fire scene as well, trying to avoid that as much as possible. Ed, who are you?
I'm very strongly tempted to use a pseudonym and change my actual place of work because I fear that something might be said in the next 30 minutes that would cause me to lose my job. But since you went ahead and ruined it, my name is Ed Smith, and I work for... No, my name is Ed Song, and I teach at George Fox University in the politics department.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
We're trying to pick topics that are semi-apolitical, but of course we get our own pushback on our ideas, being three guys as we are. Well, if you're catching the second episode, we're recording right on the eve of February, and so in the theme, wearing the red colored shirt here, we are in fact having the topic of top 3 Valentine's to-dos. So I'm going to let Don Patterson's got some background on this, and then we'll have some conversation about our top 3 Valentine to-dos. Go ahead, Don.
I'm a little intimidated by the fact that you chose your shirt in conjunction with our topic. I feel like that's next level, and I need to up my game when we hit number 3.
You could take your shirt off. That would really be the move.
That would be appropriate for a Valentine's Day episode,
Family
right?
show, Ed. Family show. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Where 3 cisgendered heterosexual married men offer 3 opinions on one family-friendly topic.
Yes, but we're not all white.
Right. That's exactly right. Okay.
All right. So Valentine's Day.
That's what people on the street tell me.
Yes.
Valentine's Day is celebrated on February 14th. Let's start there. And what I want to do is take a little bit of a history lesson and talk about the historic arc of Valentine's Day. Geographically, that arc starts in the Mediterranean with historic Christianity, moves through Rome, up through Europe into the UK, and then eventually to the US and globally, where it's celebrated only vaguely in relation to its historic origins. So in ancient history, that being early Christianity, 0 to 500 or so, the origins of Valentine's Day begin with a person named Valentine and later canonized as Saint Valentine, who was a Christian martyr. So by martyr, I mean someone who died because he refused to give up his faith in the face of some kind of persecution or challenge. Now, the trick is that we say it's about Saint Valentine, but there's actually several accounts of people named Valentine who were different people that were martyred in different ways in Christian history. And the most common one is a guy named Valentine of Rome. He was a priest who was killed in 269. Side note, I want to know at what point priests became a thing in Christian history. Anyway, he was imprisoned because he took care of persecuted Christians in the Roman Empire in like the 3rd century or so about 5 or 6 generations after Jesus died. And among other things, he was purported to have officiated marriages of Christian soldiers who were not allowed to be married by the Roman emperor as sort of a state edict. And because of those actions taken in opposition to the Roman emperor, he was jailed. While jailed, a miracle is attributed to him in that he was able to cure, or he was the channel through which his jailer's daughter was cured of blindness. Legend has it that he was in jail because he was being interrogated for his charity to persecuted Christians by the Roman Emperor Claudius, who tried to convert him to Roman paganism, but instead Valentine tried to convert Claudius to Christianity. And while that move resulted in him being executed, the jailer and 46 members of his household were baptized into the Christian faith. So you win some, you lose some. Fun fact, his body parts, especially his skull, remain relics and are on display in Rome and in Dublin, Ireland, if you are so inclined to stop by and take a look at him. But he's only one of 4 Valentines we know about. The second one was Valentine of Terni, a location in Italy. He was a bishop in central Italy, also martyred in 273. Not clear exactly from my research why he was martyred. Valentine number 3 was martyred in Africa with other companions, but again, nothing much more is known about him. And then Valentine number 4 is a guy named Valentine of Genoa, all of which kind of died in the same time period from the late 200s to early 300s. The feast itself, or the holiday of St. Valentine's, has been recorded as early as the 8th century, although depending on the branch of Christianity, the exact day and the manner of celebration and kind of how high it is in the hierarchy of church celebrations varies quite a bit. So that's early history. Let me go through 2 different stages. Late Middle Ages and the early modern period, about up to 1750. The story of Valentine got embellished in various ways, started to become more mythical and legendary, if it wasn't already. And it included a story about Valentine writing a letter to the cured jailer's daughter that he cured while he was in jail, right before he was executed, and he signed that letter, "Your Valentine," becoming one of the origins of sort of the gifting of Valentines. So another thing that got added to his legend was that he was known to make paper hearts from parchment that he gave to the soldiers that were being married. You can see where maybe the paper hearts come from. And one that's less known in our time is that he was known for wearing an amethyst ring, so the jewel in amethyst, purple, which was what Christian bishops often did in terms of the ring. And that was how soldiers identified him as being someone that could marry them. Curiously, it had an image of Cupid on it, which was a divine symbol of love that was allowed under the Roman Empire. So those stories were built upon by poets and writers of various kinds. For example, Chaucer, famous Middle English poet in 1382, included a reference to Valentine's Day in his poem A Parliament of Fowls, or in Don Patterson English, A Congress of Chickens. It was a story about birds mating. And there were several other medieval works that also referenced this birds mating phenomenon around Valentine's Day, but it's not clear who was first. So if we jump forward to the 1600s, Shakespeare mentions Valentine's Day in Hamlet in a scene that would be at home in any R-rated movie today, maybe PG-13 today, in which 2 lovers secretly meet in a bedroom before the woman leaves quickly in a solo exit. The story is elaborated on a little bit more in the original Shakespeare play. I will leave that as an exercise for the reader. An interesting addition to the Valentine's Day poetry stuff is the roses are red, violets are blue poem format. That showed up in about 1590 in a reference to an epic poem called The Fairy Queen, in which Spenser writes, "She bathed with roses red and violets blue, and all the sweetest flowers in the forest grew." Later on, it developed the stanza that we know. 1784 in London, we had, "The rose is red, the violet's blue, the honey's sweet, and so are you. Thou art my love, and I am thine. I drew thee to my Valentine. The lot was cast, and then I drew, and fortune said it should be you." Which brings us to the modern period. That took us from ancient Christianity through Rome, through Europe, and then it moves specifically into the UK. So the explosion of the modern interpretation of Valentine's Day coincided with the growth of the printing press and the postal system. Paper Valentines with pre-written poems on them were developed in the late 18th and 19th century in factories in England, such that 60,000 cards were sent through the postal system in the UK in 1835. A reduction in the price of postage caused that number to rise to 400,000. And since these could now be sent anonymously, they, like Shakespeare, could and did take an R-rated turn. This in turn gave rise to Valentine cards as we know today, with lots of variations in the presentation and construction and quality. And while this was taking place in the UK, in the mid to late 19th century, the US fully embraced the commercialization of the holiday, The exchange of cards grew to include the exchange of chocolate, also happening in the UK, gifts and jewelry, all turning on the historic and sometimes historically recreated legends of Valentine's Day, symbols of hearts and birds, vows, and romantic relationships. Today, the exchange of Valentine's Day cards is estimated to be about 1 billion with, who do you think gets the most Valentines? What category of person?
Elementary school kids.
Close? Teachers.
Ah.
Yeah. So despite the fact that it's supposed to be a holiday about, and is a holiday celebrating romantic love today, turns out that teachers are loved very much. So that brings us to today. It is time for our 3 opinions about what Valentine's Day must-dos are. And I will kick it over to Mark to break the ice on his hierarchy.
Listen, it's good to know that Valentine's Day predates Karen Valentine, a 1970s actress who starred in such shows as Room 222. I think she made a few appearances on Love American Style, kind of well themed, right? Valentine. So there we go.
Legendary, but not mythological.
Legendary, but not mythological. There. So we're looking at our three top Valentine's to-dos. Again, kind of in the more ubiquitous category. All of us are married. We all have our own relationships and our own. We all have kids. We all in fact have daughters. So just some fun, maybe family traditions. But when I was thinking about top Valentine's to-dos, my number 3 is kind of a little bit of a left field one here, but I wanted to throw in the rom-com movie. I think that's a great number 3 for Valentine's Day. It's certainly become a genre of movie besides just a comedy or maybe just a romance. The rom-com has become its own type of movie. There's a little bit of we've just come out of, at least for us, we've just come out of Christmas time where we've seen a lot of Hallmark movies that kind of use that rom-com as kind of an element there. But really, like classic movies like, Valentine's Day is, of course, a great rom-com that shows romance in a lot of different relationships. You can go very, very G and PG. Some of the more current Disney films might be considered like rom-coms, like Enchanted, something like that. One of our favorites in our household is happens to be kind of light R-rated, but When Harry Met Sally, that's a great movie. So movies that demonstrate romantic relationships, perhaps over time, with a lot of comedic element, I think is kind of a classic for Valentine's Day. Whether you watch those on Valentine's Day itself or around the time, I think it's a must-do around the Valentine's Day season.
What better demonstration of sacrificial love than to watch a rom-com?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think you're starting to steal our thunder because I can foresee a top 3 best romantic comedy movies in our futures.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Oh, gosh.
And I also think, I just want to add on to this real quick. I also think with the increase in streaming, that you can just have any movie on demand at any point in time. I think it really does make for some good conversation about movies to watch on Valentine's Day itself, if you're so inclined. Okay, number 3, rom-com. I'm going to kick it over there to Ed. Go ahead. What's your number 3?
So I have to say I'm something of a Valentine's Day grouch. Like the commercialization is pretty annoying to me. It's like the fakest holiday. Glad to hear more about the original origins of the patron saint of this day.
4 patron saints.
Yeah, 4 patron saints. I thought I had read somewhere that the original Valentine cooked a steak and lobster dinner for his jailer and also gave him lingerie. Did that not come up in your research?
It did on the Wikipedia page for Victoria's Secret.
Of course. So my top 3 are all going to be a little bit grumpy. The one that is the one, I mean, actually, well, maybe it's more than one. But so my number 3 is chocolates. Chocolates should be bestowed on the beloved in whatever sense they're beloved. And I really do think that they should be chocolates and not like some other candy. Sometime we'll have to do the 3 worst candies, and I'll just go ahead and spoil that episode and say the number 1 worst candy, or what are they even called? The marshmallow heart things that you always get
Oh
with the
gosh, the
messages on
chalk
them.
things, the chalky
Yeah,
things. Oh
those
gosh, absolutely not. You're right. Like that's not what
there's
you're saying, but I agree with you.
there's no better way to say I really hate you than giving somebody one of those. So
Okay,
my number 3 must do on Valentine's Day is chocolates of some kind.
okay, okay.
I feel like that's like because if it doesn't go over well, then there's chocolates in the house, and like I win. So I need to like put myself. I need to provide some context here. My position here is how to have a better relationship after Valentine's Day than before. And so like bringing up the nasty Valentine's Day candy, not even my perspective. Number 3, very simple. Hand make a Valentine's Day card.
Hmm.
That's it.
Hmm.
It shows that you spent a little bit of time. It doesn't cost a lot
Mhm,
of money. It lets
mhm.
you be a little bit creative and to customize it for the person that you care about. It doesn't take a lot of work to make a big, good impression. Number 3, hand make your Valentine's Day card.
Okay. Well, number two. Number two on my Valentine's Day must do's is dinner. I think that I
Mm.
was thinking earlier about Valentine's Day. There aren't too many holidays that are kind of themed around evening time as much as Valentine's Day. The one that kind of I think of that comes next might be Halloween. But of course, Halloween is so much focused on kids going and trick or treating, things like that. Even holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, that well, certainly Thanksgiving, that is more food related. Your Thanksgiving dinner tends to be more of like an afternoon lunch, right? So it tends to be more of that versus like maybe a full dinner. And I think Valentine's Day uh, dinner really is an important part, especially if you're in a relationship, if you're dating, even if you're going out with friends. Maybe a Valentine's dinner is a nice thing to do. It could be kind of like Don said. It could be a reservation in a nice restaurant. It could be making dinner at home. It could be making dinner together as a couple. But I think that dinner has to be an important must do part of Valentine's Day. So my number two is dinner.
I feel like there's more flexibility in going out or making your own with dinner on Valentine's Day than with the card. I think the card needs to be handmade. Dinner does not.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. It can take a variety of forms. Although restaurants are, really nice restaurants are just booked up well in advance
Oh
on
yeah, make
Valentine's
that
Day
reservation early.
because going out to Valentine's Day on the 13th or the 15th just doesn't quite do it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, Ed, over to you. Number two.
So I'm embarrassed to be agreeing with my distinguished colleague in that my number 2 was also dinner. However, I'm going to elaborate on the requirements of this dinner.
Ah,
I think that it should be a homemade dinner,
oh,
and I love the idea of doing it with your beloved, whatever that means. But making a dinner at home, uh, together with your family or your spouse or your girlfriend or the beloved, whatever that is, um, making dinner, and part of it is I just think in general there isn't a better way to express your love for another person than by feeding them.
now,
And so
wait.
I
Can I
think
clarify?
cooking a dinner,
Are
yes,
you saying that you and your partner are making the dinner together, or you're making it for?
yes,
Okay, so you're talking about like co-creating dinner.
co-creating dinner,
Hey, I'm
yes,
academic. Okay, all
that's
right,
my
I
number
hear that.
2.
I hear that.
uh, Dr. Patterson.
Yes. Okay. So my number 2 is weird, but this has come out of being a dad. I've got 4 kids, a lot of different seasons, dating, marriage, kids, and older kids now too. My number 2 is be very clear about what you're celebrating. We've seen in the
Mm.
history of Valentine's Day, there's a lot of like different things that get added up. And for me, the thing that you're celebrating is your romantic, well, in my case, the thing that I'm celebrating is my romantic relationship with my wife. And that means that the gifts and the things that I'm doing are primarily and if not quite exclusively for my wife. So, for example, although I do some small things for my kids, I only do it for my daughters. I don't do it for my boys. And we have this tradition of getting cinnamon rolls in the morning. The cinnamon rolls are for everyone. I maybe get one small piece of chocolate for my daughters, but the majority of the focus of the holiday is on my wife. And that's because I think there needs to be sort of a clarity about what you're celebrating. It needs to be modeled for folks around you that you're celebrating the person that you're in a relationship with. And like, of course, there's some exceptions. I can imagine like various reasons why you might want to extend that a little bit. But for me, the primary number 2 thing is be very clear about what you're doing on this day. It's meta.
Okay. Well, for my number 1, I'm gonna go off script here. I'm gonna say my number 1 must-do requirement for Valentine's Day is Padaro Beach Grill in Carpinteria, California.
I hear their fries are amazing.
Their fries are amazing, even though they're not anything that anybody would know outside of like a 20-mile radius of Carpinteria, taking after my
proximity to trains is so romantic.
There's nothing more romantic than the roar of a train going by 10 feet away from you at 60 miles an hour, getting sand all over your food. Especially like nothing says I love you more than that.
Especially in February with only outdoor seating in the evening when it's going to be cold and kind of frankly kind of wet. No, so my number 1, not ashamed, but actually happy to agree with one of my co-hosts here. Number 1 has to be chocolate. And I love it. So a few things about this, right? First, look what I have here. I have a bear with Hershey's Kisses. What is there a better named candy for Valentine's Day than Hershey's Kisses? Right? So named actually by the Hershey company because the machine that makes them injects chocolate by kissing onto the conveyor belt and making the unique shape of those candies, right? So but I do think, kind of like Ed said, I think that chocolate is important. Obviously, on Valentine's Day, as maybe as grade school kids, we get a variety of different types of chocolates, or a variety of different types of candies. Obviously, there's some value to having candy that isn't going to melt if you leave it in a car or something like that for a long period of time. But I do think that chocolates are really an important part of Valentine's Day. Again, that maybe is just kind of a cultural adaptation. I know 2.5 people in my life that just say, well, I don't like chocolate. And so that's just kind of a pass for them. But I think chocolates are very important. And of course, besides all of the commercialization of Valentine's Day, one company that kind of performs well at this time of the year is See's Candies, right? So they have, of course, specialty chocolates all year round. And it is a practice in our household for me to get a large chocolate heart for my wife and a smaller chocolate heart for my daughter. And so that, I think that's an important part. So my number 1 has to be chocolate. Whether it's at the Padaro Beach Grill or not, that's immaterial.
They don't have chocolate.
They don't have chocolate. Okay. Go ahead, Ed. What's your number 2?
No, my number 1.
Number 1. Sorry, number 1.
My number 1 is a little bit of a variation again on something that one of you has said. And, I like Don's point about a handmade card. That's a lovely sentiment. I will say, however, that my number 1, it's not a card so much as a handwritten letter. I think you should write a handwritten letter.
That ups the bar.
If such a letter also comes on a handmade card, then so much the better for you. But I think, in today's society, we don't write letters ever anymore. And so I think taking one day a year to put thought to paper and is a nice way of expressing care and love for another person. So my number 1 heterosexual, cisgendered, married Valentine's Day must do is write an actual letter on paper with a pen.
ChatGPT, please write a letter for me. My number 1.
ChatGPT, can you give me instructions about how to make a lovely handmade Valentine's card, as well as 250-word letter expressing my love to my beloved?
ChatGPT, please tell me how to feel towards my spouse. My number 1 is to make sure whatever you do lasts for 2 hours in a hot car. So chocolate's out. No, my number 1 is actually in Tesla pet mode for Valentine's Day. My number one is in direct opposition to your introduction, Ed. You were like all grouch, it's Hallmark holiday. My number one is take advantage of it. Do not call it a Hallmark holiday. Do not blow it off. Valentine's Day is the easiest relational win ever. You've got the whole world coming together to help you remember that you care about the person that you're in a relationship with or you're married with. Don't blow it off. Don't call it a Hallmark holiday. Just take the win. Go make it easy. Go do it. Like no one's gonna fault you for like living into Valentine's Day. So I'm like, number one, do not blow it off. Make it a big deal and just like admit that you're part of this long history of people rewriting what Valentine's Day is in all kinds of different ways. Make it your own, but it's easy. Don't blow it. It's easier than an anniversary because you don't even have to really remember it as much as your anniversary.
Wow. So Valentine's Day is a big deal in the Patterson household.
It's a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think that like the degree to which we spend money and celebrate it and everything isn't the biggest deal, but in terms of like marking it as a day, yeah, it's a big deal. I think that if I didn't do anything for Valentine's Day, I would be spending a lot more in counseling immediately afterwards than I would ever have to spend on a nerd rope, which lasts for 2 hours in a hot car. BTW.
Yes, that's right. Well, there
The
we
nerd
go.
rope isn't chocolate.
Let's recap our top threes. My number three was a rom-com, kind of a newer genre which has become popular, especially around Valentine's Day. Number two, really focusing on dinner, having a good dinner, whether that's out or in, making that a priority. And then number one has to be some element of chocolate, right? Introducing some kind of chocolate element into the day, whether it's Hershey's Kisses or See's Candies or anything in between. I think those are my top three to-dos for Valentine's Day. Ed, recap yours there.
My number three. What was my number three? My number three was chocolates. Mm-hmm. My number two was make dinner communally.
Co-create.
And my number one was write a letter, an actual letter, not an email or a text or a TikTok.
I have to agree. I think writing a letter is probably the most romantic thing that has been said here today, but also maybe the most difficult thing to do of the things I've said for me. But okay, so kudos, but like I don't know if I can pull it off. My three were number three, hand make a Valentine's Day card. It's like Ed's number one, but light. Number two, be very clear about what it is that you're celebrating so that whatever ideas that you come up with make sense and you don't blow it, because number one is don't blow it. It's easy. It's a gimme. They're serving it up to you on a platter. Just take it off and you're winning. It's a win. Easy win.
Okay. So listen, these are good tips for anybody for Valentine's Day, especially for men that are kind of wondering what to do. We're trying to give you some help here.
Men of a certain age.
Right. What do you say?
Men of a certain age.
Men of a certain age, I suppose. Yes, but I think Don's right. I think it's hand delivered to us. So
on a platter, man.
No pressure, but don't blow it. Okay, so. Well, that's about it for us today on the 3 for 3 podcast, where three men give three opinions on one, very interesting topic. So,
holidays are fake. Come on.
Yeah, they kind of are. So, well, listen, we want to hear your comments.
Yeah.
So you can leave your comments in below. Let us.
I want to hear opinions from other genders.
We just totally overlooked and missed. I doubt it. I think we had a pretty.
Tell us who had the best top three
and why it was me.
Tell us who had the best top three. You can vote for your conscience, not for them. Okay. And we look forward to seeing you fairly soon. So good luck. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. And may it be the best as my co-hosts are trying to distract me. Have a great day. Thanks for joining the 3 for 3 podcast and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.